right, so first of all, the reason why I'm here is because I want to talk about these two topics. One is called the Authority Embodied, and it's basically about uh, the key element of human design. It's all about our authority. How do we make decisions as ourselves? And that's what I'm talking about, right? This is the whole point of human design. And how do we actually recognize the authority? Where do we recognize it? Where do we feel it? How do we get in touch with it? And so that's going to be the first part of my presentation today. And the second part of the presentation is talking about the not self and how oftentimes it's just made into an enemy, and how it's easy to talk about not self because it's very easy to just describe it. And especially when you meet human design at the beginning, it's typically something we encounter. You know, we see an open ego center and we go like, oh my God, I'm making all these promises I can't keep and all of that. So those are the two topics I want to talk about. And I hope you'll enjoy it. As far as your interaction, feel free to write questions, but ideally when I invite you, because whenever you write a question, everybody's going to pay attention to it, look into it. And so there'll be moments when I invite you, and actually I will invite some of you to participate more in this first part where I talk about the authority. And we're going to take a look at your charts and just play together in a way to recognize where the authority is for you and how to get in touch with it. And so, having said that, just let me say a few things about myself so that you can know a little bit more where I'm coming from. And so, I was born in Czech Republic, and you know, you've got my birth data here in case you're interested, because we are, after all, here because of human design, so birth data is important. I am an MG, manifesting generator, 2-4 profile, right angle cross, so sleeping phoenix. And I've lived in different places in my life, and I really met human design in 2006, and I just started studying it straight away. A year or two before I met human design, I had a dream where I was in some kind of a structure, and I saw this Star of David, you know, those two triangles, you know, separating, one going up and the other going down. And basically, as you know, this is the symbol of head and ajna. So when I saw my chart for the first time, immediately I recognized, wow, this is really important. I really need to study it. And I signed up, and I took all the foundational and professional courses with Linda Bonnell, which was fantastic foundation, and I'm really grateful for that. It was just great to have this experience. And then I did all those courses again with Genoa Bliven from Human Design America. And basically, Genoa became my mentor, teacher, friend, and I ended up teaching for Human Design America for the last 5 years. So I am a professional analyst since 2009. I'm teacher of the following courses, you know, LYD ABC, professional training, LYDG, and you know, I taught extensively in Czech Republic since 2010. You know, I had the fortune of having taught a lot of the courses and seminars in Aura, you know, actually in person, not just online. And I taught for Human Design America since 2015. I've done, you know, over 3,500 readings, many courses, and basically human design is something that I'm into because of myself. You know, I have a lot of individual circuitry. So the reason why I was attracted to human design was basically because I wanted to get it for myself. I wanted to really appreciate what it has to offer for myself. And not so long after I entered into human design, I actually decided, well, this is something I actually want to do professionally. And so, you know, it became my calling. Those of you that know a second line, meaning its main keynote, but one of the main keynotes is calling. So human design really became my calling. Now, pretty much after the first few years where I was really immersed in studying and listening to all kinds of lectures by Ra and reading things, I became more and more clear that I really wanted to get it in my everyday life because, as you all know, it's easy to fall in love with human design and to study it and to be interested in it on the intellectual level. But I really wanted to find ways to translate this understanding into something that can be very down to earth, practical, into something that we can apply into everyday life. And actually, if you look at my design, my design Earth is gate 20 in line 4, which is called application. So it is a part of my incarnation cross. And so I kind of quoted Ravi Ching when I wrote this, but it's actually how it feels for me. It's like, okay, human design is awesome, but how do we make sure that we actually get it? What can we do to actually make it? Because uh, and I think I'm not alone in this. It's being told that it takes 7 years to decondition, but I always considered myself like, yeah, maybe, but it just feels that even after 7 years, I'm pretty conditioned, and another 7 years passed, and I mean, it's still there. So what can we do to actually make it stick, to make it happen? And I have a fourth line in my profile, so that's another kind of an aspect of being called to externalize it, to make it stick, so that something really changes in our life. And basically, that's the first part of my lecture here. I'm going to talk about the authority and how the authority really uh, can and has to be embodied in us, how we can have this felt sense for what the authority tells us, because that's basically really what it's all about. I mean, it's all about authority, right? uh, all of these other things that we can learn from human design, they are just signposts. They help us to be more able to recognize what the authority is really telling us, right? These are signposts that are valuable, but ultimately it all comes down to the authority. And so how do we get in touch with the authority? Where do we feel it? How do we recognize it? And a big part of the journey was that for myself as a manifesting generator, of course, I heard the words respond, just respond, and heard that many times, especially from Rob, from his lectures on generators and so on. But I was like, what the heck is it? I have no idea what response means. It's been like, I fell in love with human design. I started studying it. I signed up for LYD course. The LYD course was over. I was really excited, but I still had no clue what the response actually is. And for a manifesting generator, it's more challenging than for a pure generator, and especially with this channel 3420, which is a manifesting channel. It's kind of challenging to recognize what the response is. I have another manifesting channel here, so all the more chances for me to initiate a lot, which is, I've done a lot of that in my life, and I still do occasionally, obviously. But I was like, what does it mean, this response? And me trying to get it, trying to understand it. And then something actually shifted when I was sleeping, maybe 2.5, 3 months into my experiment. And the next morning I woke up and I couldn't explain why, but on some level I had I had an understanding of what it means. It was some kind of a shift, and that actually happened several times in the first year. It happened like 4 times, where I would gradually get a better and better understanding of what it actually means to respond, and learning to learning to put it into words as well, which was a part of my journey. As I became a teacher, I became an analyst, and I became a teacher. I tried to actually put it into words, and so you know, let's dive into this topic, authority embodied. Um, You know that in human design, we have different modes of authority. Most of them are called so-called the inner authority. You know, some of them, these two, for a reflector and mental projector, if you run the chart, it comes up with where it says authority, no inner authority, or no authority. I'm not sure what, but it's kind of misleading because it may make you think that you have no way of making your own decisions, but actually everybody has. So, we can talk about it as a personal authority. And as you know, probably that anytime somebody has a solar plexus defined, they have what's called the solar plexus inner authority. If there is no solar plexus definition and they have a sacral defined, there is a sacral inner authority, and so on and so forth, all the way up to lunar personal authority for reflectors. Now, um, when we come to subject of authority, we can actually ask, and it's a good question, what is the authority making decisions about, right? And we're talking about decision making, we're talking about the authority making our decisions for us, surrendering the mind, allowing the authority, which is the truth, our voice of truth, as I like to call it, our voice of truth, to guide us. But what is the authority making decisions about? Well, here is a quote from Genoa Bliven. Authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. Authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness. So when you look at Genoa's chart, for example, you can see that he has an open solar plexus, right? The open solar plexus obviously is the openness towards all kinds of feelings, emotions, and all of that. And he has gate 49 activated as a dormant potential in the solar plexus, which is the gate of revolution and principles. So we can also call it the gate of revolutionary principles. It is the gate of acceptance and or rejection. So the person can either accept or reject something based on their principles. It is a tribal gate, so that means that they can get support of other people in rejection, in rejecting something. Therefore, the word revolution. Or they can get other people on board and their support in accepting something. Okay. Now, typically when the dormant potential is in an open center, I mean, dormant potential is a gate activated in an open center, so it's always in an open center. When Genoa comes in contact with anybody who has a defined solar plexus, or there's a transit through gate 19 or whatever, basically all the time, what happens is that this dormant potential kicks in and really kind of comes online, and the tendency might be for this person to accept or reject things based on feelings, right? Because that's the conditioning. The conditioning is here, this kind of a knee-jerk reaction to, okay, I don't feel like accepting this, I feel like accepting this, I feel like rejecting this, because there are certain feelings and emotions in a situation. But going back to this quote, which is authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness, we can see that Genoa has a splenic authority. And so it's his spleen, it's his intuition and instincts that will give him this intuitive, immediate, spontaneous hit, which is going to inform him whether it's correct for him to accept or reject something, not based on the feelings that are entering through his openness here, but based on the authority, right? So everything that comes into us through our openness, and by the way, openness is where we look out into the world. Openness is where we meet other people, where we get help, where we make relationships, where we interact with the world around us. Openness is relational, okay? Anything that comes into us through our openness, and not just centers, obviously, there are gates that are important that are not activated, be it in open or defined centers. Anything that is open in our design, anything that we take in through the openness is ideally passed on over to the authority, whatever the authority of the design is, to make a decision about, okay? So we make decisions about that which enters into us through our openness, okay? But how do we recognize the authority, right? And where in our body do we recognize it? Where do you experience it, right? Be it emotional clarity, sacral response, the intuitive hit from spleen, or any other of the modalities that you have. How do you actually recognize it, right? Because we have a body here. We're living in the material world, and the body is the ultimate instrument through which we perceive anything that we're perceiving, right? And so uh, we can learn to recognize this so-called felt sense that is basically telling us, yes, accept this, or yes, no, reject this, or do this, or don't do this. You know, the voice of truth, the authority, is this felt sense that we can learn to recognize when it's happening, and we can learn to recognize it in other situations in our life, and we can practice to pay attention to it all the time. Okay, this is what it means to live our design, is to be paying attention to our authority, and either, you know, and checking whether the authority is in a yes mode or in the no mode, or maybe not now mode, or maybe I don't know mode, which, you know, translates as no for now anyways. You know, it's either yes or everything else, I don't know or no. And how do we learn to recognize it? Where do we feel it, right? So we're going to explore together what it really means for you, you know, for you specifically, to go beyond these usual response and emotional clarity slogans. Because really, you know, when you talk about response, and, you know, we can start with the sacral authority, because even though it's not the most common, you know, at the same time, 2/3 of the people in the world are generators, so they have a defined sacral. And this response really is, you know, in my opinion, synonym to connecting with something, right? Because the response happens when your life force connects with something from outside. And when that happens, your life force is rising up in its frequency. You are making yourself available, or the life force is making itself available. It takes something in, and it begins to rise up, and all of a sudden you have the power, you have the energy to be connected, involved in something, to begin working, building, creating. You know, all these are keynotes for the sacral authority, right? So what is the sacral response, and how do you recognize it, right? So at this point, I would actually like to you know, invite anybody that has a sacral authority and would like to play with me in order to kind of fine tune into your inner authority, into your sacral inner authority. You know, give me your birth data, and I'll just type it in MMI. I'll share your chart, and we can talk about it. So is there somebody who'd like to do that? You can come on the video. Who's there? David? And you're muted. Can you just
All right. Hi there.
hey, David, nice to see you.
Hey, nice to
Okay.
see you.
Great. So if you can just give me your birth date, I'm just going to create your chart straight away, and then I'll share it.
Sure thing. October 30th.
Okay. Okay. 30th October. Yes, go ahead.
1972.
1972. And what time?
3 o'clock in the morning.
Straight, you know, like exactly 3 o'clock.
Exactly. My mom looked at the clock as I left her body.
Okay. Cool. And where was that?
That was in San Diego, California,
Okay.
United States.
Sure. San Diego. Okay. All right. So I've got your chart. I'm going to share it in just a moment. And just to confirm for me that this is indeed your chart.
That's it.
Okay, cool, great. so, so how long are you into human design, by the way? How long do you know about being a generator and responding?
7.5 years.
Okay, that's quite a long time. So,
Mm.
are you relatively familiar with the response and how to recognize it? Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so when the response actually happens, how do you perceive it? Where do you perceive it?
In my belly, essentially.
In your belly, okay.
Hmm.
So can you go back to a recent example, where that happened? Could be something very small, like in the morning, deciding to have a coffee instead of tea, or something big, whatever. Just an example that, in a recent time. Can you think of that example?
Hmm. The most
Yeah.
recent time was when you just asked me if I knew what my response was.
Okay, great. Okay. And so
Yeah.
wonderful. So in your belly, how
Mhm.
how exactly? What did you feel there?
It feels like a what is it? It feels like getting excited, like when you're about to see a good friend or when you're about to go see a movie that you've been looking forward to and you finally bought the ticket. You know, that kind of
Uh-huh.
that inner generation of enthusiasm.
Okay, great. And sensationally, physically, in your body, in your belly, what happens there?
Um as in, can you clarify the question?
Yeah, like you said, you feel it in your belly.
Hmm.
Can you say a little bit more about it?
Yeah. It it goes from being, after having been doing this for over 7 years now, I've gotten to a place where it's kind of always on attention, if you will. Um, and
Right.
and so it's always kind of like humming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
wah 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 wah, kind of that thing. And
Uh-huh.
then when the question or the opportunity arises, it goes whoo, wah, 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 wah.
Okay, and if
Essentially, is how.
this is fantastic that you can actually be in touch with it to such a degree. This is actually what I'm talking about here. So,
Mm,
so if you were to give it a name when that happens,
mhm.
this shift, how would you name it?
Excitement.
Excitement. Okay, you've
Hmm.
used that excitement before, right? So,
or the opposite. If it's a negative response, it's, and then it retracts. It contracts into itself.
so be a contraction or something like that, right? Right. So basically, and you seem to be so with it that it kind of feels like we don't really need to do that anymore. It's just that, whenever you feel this excitement in you, that's a sign that yes, you can go ahead. You can start something new. You can, set off this whole journey of maturation experiences, and at the same time, as you do that, you'll be empowered by exploring everything you love doing, and perfecting the form. All of that excitement is the go ahead for you. That's a sign, and you just seem to be so with it that it almost feels redundant, but it's at the same time it really is exciting to hear you speak about
Oh,
it in
good,
this way.
good. Yeah,
So
yeah.
fantastic, dude. Yeah, so I guess that's it, so we can
Oh,
just go.
good.
Yeah, perfect,
Nice to
thanks.
meet you. Thanks for
Yeah, nice
including
to
me.
meet you. Thanks for helping me with the demo. We can go to somebody else who
My pleasure.
would like to do that. So Julia, I can just call on someone. I don't know if somebody's writing or somebody's popping on the video, and I'll just generate their chart in the same way. And you're muted.
Yeah, I don't see any writing in the
So,
moment.
okay, we've got Julia on the video there, right? Or somebody who comes on the video, we'll just do it with them. I'm calling on sacral authorities. Okay, so Charmaine was first. So let's go to Charmaine, and Lusa, you can be in the queue. Okay, you can turn off the video for now. Charmaine, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, hi.
Hi. Lusa, if you can switch off the video, please. And Charmaine, can you give me your birth data?
18th of June.
And you disappeared from the video.
Sorry, I thought you said, okay,
No,
18th
that
of
was,
June,
okay, 18th of June.
1966,
Okay, at what time?
08:08 a.m.
0808. Okay, that's an easy one. And where was that?
Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay, so got it. So are we looking at your design?
You are, yes.
Yeah, but you don't have a sacral authority, so we need somebody with
Sorry.
we can come back to you later, okay? In just a moment when we get to the emotional one. But Lusa, are you there? And anybody that has a sacral authority, if you can come on the video, then I'll just work with you, whoever. Petra, okay, great. Hi, Petra. All right, so okay, I don't need to ask you for your chart because I've got it here. All right, Petra. So So when you respond, what actually happens for you? How do you feel it? How do you recognize it?
Mhm. I feel excited. There is energy which is going through my body, and usually it starts in the belly, but I feel it even in all of the body, that there is some kind of life force which is going through me and which wants to connect.
Okay, and so can you say a little bit more physically about what's happening? Because I know you're into human design for years now, so you're probably quite in touch with it. Can you
yeah, it
tune
starts
into that?
in the belly, and at the same time, if I'm not connected with the topic or with the person or whatever, it's contract, and I don't feel that I have the power or the will or whatever to connect with it, and I avoid it. And if I feel it, it's really just start to go up in the body and at the same time down in the body, like connect all the body, the legs and the head and the ajna, like really it's a connection. So then I can move with this energy.
Okay, and if you were to give it a name for that moment when it actually happens, how would you call it? What would you call it?
I actually can call it love, because it's really it's and life like enliven me, or make me
Life.
more alive. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So basically, when that happens, if the response is strong, you can feel this life very strongly. But my point here is that you can learn to track it when it's strong, and filter for it, trace it in situations where it's quite subtle, like somebody asks you, like, do you want a glass of water, and the response is not going to be so overwhelming like when you meet somebody you didn't see for a long time and you have a good friendship with them, right? So you want a glass of water, you're gonna go, yeah, I want a glass of water, sure.
yeah, it's
But it's
usually in
still
the
going to be there. It's going to be subtle, but it's still going to be there, right? Yeah. So that's for everybody, like you can learn to trace it when it's very pronounced, when it's very strong, when it's powerful. You can learn to recognize how this authority tastes or feels for you, this felt sense. And then in a moment when it's not as strong, but it's still there, you will be basically training your attention, your awareness to recognize it and be able to trace it, kind of like David spoke about earlier, that he can kind of constantly feel it humming. And then just even when the response is subtle and small, he can still feel it or not. It's either there or not. And so that's what guides you. So yeah, thanks for helping me out. And maybe we can go to just one more. Laura, are you a sacred generator? Yes, Laura?
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I don't speak very well English, but yeah, I'm Sacral Authority.
Okay, so what's your birth date?
Is 9 October of 1982.
1982, at what time?
At 5:30 in the afternoon.
Okay, and where?
In Trento, north of Italy.
Okay, so is this your chart?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you're actually emotional, but you can wait for a moment. I'm just going to share my other presentation now and just continue a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about the emotional authority and conclude this sacred thing. So you can just wait for a moment, maybe turn off the video for a moment, and we'll come back to you. Okay? Yeah.
One thing, because can you show me again just one moment my chart, because maybe there is something is not I don't recognize with my chart.
Okay, is that it?
Uh, no, no, I just have here that I don't have the
So
emotional
what is the date again?
9 October of 1982, yes, and the time is 5:30.
That's 4:30 p.m. Yeah, Trento,
No, no,
Italy.
no, 5, not 4.
Oh, okay, 5:30. Okay, so 17:30. Okay, there we are. Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. That's you.
thank you.
Perfect.
Sorry.
So in your, how long do you know human design, by the way?
I started in May.
In May, so not even a year. Okay, so you've got this channel of rhythm, design of being in a flow, and this is one of the main things in your design. So I'm just going to use it as a way of explaining something. When the authority makes decision about something, whatever the center is, you know, unless it's a reflector, uh, the authority is going to, in this case, sacral, is going to say yes to something only as long as the response will allow you to be in your flow, to be in your rhythm. You know, the channel of rhythm design of being in the flow, 515 is here. And so your sacral will never tell you go ahead. Your sacral will never respond to something that will take you away from your flow. You know, every time you respond, the response takes you into the flow, into your own rhythm, right? And so, you know, for example, you've got this channel of transformation design of being driven. That is something that also only you can live out correctly as long as you respond. So the authority makes you or allows you to express all these channels that you have in your design in a way that it basically comes together and works. Now, when you respond, what happens? Can you recall a situation when you responded and how you felt the response?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess still my mind is putting the thoughts in my response, I guess,
Uh-huh,
a lot.
uh-huh.
But I guess if it is very strong, it is like an excitement. It's like a dog that is starting like,
Uh-huh.
you know, I'm excited. We are going out and
Okay. Can you remember a situation like that recently?
yes, I was. There was one that was quite strong when a friend was speaking me about some technology that
Uh-huh.
I was really appreciating it, and so I was like, "Oh wow, this is so exciting!" And I want to go deeper in this
Uh-huh.
knowledge
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah,
and
you have the one in your profile. You are the investigator. You really need to dig deep and study. Cool. And so when that happened, how did you feel it in your body? Where in your body did you feel that sensation?
um, I don't remember very well this information.
Okay, okay. But it's okay. But you felt, can you describe it again? You felt some kind of
Yeah, it was like I started trying to tell her, please tell me more about this. I want to know that. But yeah, I can't really tell you the real feeling that I was feeling in the body.
okay. So
Yeah.
that's okay. But this is really the point. This is so important, is that you learn to recognize it, you know, when
Mhm.
the response actually happens,
Mhm.
that you remind yourself to kind of check, well, how does it feel? What is this felt sense that I'm experiencing? Okay.
Okay.
Of course,
Okay.
many times you'll forget, and it's not, the whole point is that you need to control yourself 24/7 to just always kind of control, well, am I responding? Am I not responding? That's not, you know, that's crazy. But when the response happens, you can learn to recognize the sensation in the body, the felt sense, you know, the whatever it is you're experiencing, right? And that's the point of what I'm trying to communicate here, is that when you learn to recognize it, you will have you will sample how it tastes, how it smells, how it feels. You will get a sense for it in your body somehow. It's not going to be an email or message on your phone. It's something you perceive with your body, right?
Okay. Okay.
And
Uh-huh.
when that happens, when you learn to recognize it, then you
Mhm.
can check it against other experiences where you are responding. Okay. And you can see that it has a common denominator. There is something similar in all of those experiences, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
how you will pinpoint, that's how you will actually get to the point of, okay, this is my sacral response. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Now, a couple more things. You know, you have an open solar plexus, you have an open ego, you have an open head and ajna throat. You know, all these centers are open. Uh, just because you are excited, you know, excitement, positive emotions, it doesn't mean you're responding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, you being excited can totally happen at the same time when you actually respond. Okay.
Okay.
You can respond and be excited at the same time. You can respond and don't be excited at all. You know, your response may take you into situations where you will be confronted with something that's uncomfortable for you. You know, there may be a confrontation, and yet your
Mhm.
response will take you into that process. So there, you know, you may not actually even be excited about what, you know, going there or doing it. It may be uncomfortable situation, and yet your response will take you there. Or you may actually feel strong excitement about something,
Mhm.
and the
But
response is not doing anything. The response is
okay.
responding, you know.
Okay. Oh, that's
So
interesting.
you know, and everybody, you know, we need to learn to discern between all these various things we're perceiving through the open centers and the defined centers, you know. And Julia, can you make sure everybody's got their mic off, because there are some noises coming from maybe someone thinks. For example, this channel of transformation, design of being driven, right? There is a gate of ambition, you know, which is your design earth. You've got a gate of new beginnings, design sun. So you're really ambitious to start something new. You're really ambitious to get going, you know, with this drive to achieve something, right? Now this drive is there all the time. Yeah, this root pressure is there. Okay, but it doesn't mean that all the time you should start something with great ambition. Okay, it only works if on top of that there is, or even regardless of that, there is the sacral response. Only through the response you actually can start something with great ambition in a way that gets you through transformation and helps you be empowered, the channel of power, and gets you in your flow so that you experience satisfaction, which is your signature as a generator, right? So there are all these voices in our design. You know, you can see 9 centers in the body, like 9 different people in one room, and every person is saying something. You know, the centers that are open, these people are way louder than the centers that are defined, and yet your point is to learn to pinpoint, learn to recognize which one of these people is the voice of truth, which one of them is your authority, and recognize it irregardless of these other things. You know, as I said, you may be overwhelmed by emotions that can be pleasant or unpleasant, and yet irregardless of that, what is the authority saying? What is the response saying, right? So learning to recognize when you respond, how it feels, this felt sense, and also knowing that, you know, if you respond, you actually get in your flow. It's another kind of a tell, right? If you are outside of your flow, if you get, you know, out of your rhythm, if your experience is fragmented, you're chaotic, you know, people around you are chaotic, it's a sign you're initiating, probably, right? You're muted, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Wow, that's yeah, yeah, absolutely, very, very interesting, and yeah. So maybe when I responded to that technology that I was, maybe
Mhm.
that was not true. It was not from the
And
sacred.
maybe it was. We don't know, right? Maybe it was. I'm not saying it wasn't, right? I'm just saying it's important to pay attention to your
Yeah.
responses and learn to recognize this felt sense and see how it actually feels for you, because you can be really ambitious and driven and transforming and achieving goals, whatever, this channel of transformation, design of being driven.
Mhm.
But unless you are actually in your flow, you'll never be satisfied.
Yeah, it happens a lot in my life. It
Yeah,
happens.
you can
Yeah.
investigate anything you want, with this drive to get to the bottom of things. Unless you do it in response and you are in your flow, and you can do it in a way that empowers you, because these are the two generating channels, the rhythm and empowerment, the power. Unless you live out these things, you'll never be satisfied. So, okay, I guess that's it for now. Thanks for
Yeah.
playing with
Thank you very
me.
much.
Yeah,
Was very
thanks.
interesting. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks. I'm just gonna put back the presentation there. Yeah, so the point is, we talk about authority and sacral response, and the question is, what the heck is the sacral response? How do you experience it, right? As I like to say, response is raising up in the frequency of your life force. People ask me many times, in readings, in classes, was I responding? And I say, I don't know, but did you experience the energy rising up? That's the answer. You have the power, you have the energy, you're connecting with something. As I said, response, synonym of response for me is connection. Response is connecting with something, is the life force is connecting with something. And so when we talk about the authority as the key aspect of human design, it's really essential that we learn to track our attention, our awareness, to actually track it. How do we experience it in the body? Where is this felt sense? Okay. Um, and we're gonna do one more authority. We're gonna go through solar plexus, and I'll ask someone else for like playing with me one more time, and then I'll open up the mic or the forum for questions. So let's just dive briefly into emotional inner authority, solar plexus inner authority, super briefly, because, we could talk half an hour just about this. It is time oriented. It takes time. One of the main keynotes is patience. We're waiting for clarity, right? The emotional clarity, you've heard it, I'm sure many times, emotional clarity. Well, I like to say to clearly feel. It kind of translates it to a more understandable sentence. It's like emotional clarity. Okay, what is it? Well, you clearly feel something. You clearly feel that you should, you know, open up and accept, or close off and reject, in this case, for example, right? You clearly feel it, or you feel it clear enough. We know that there is an emotional wave that happens, and anytime you're making a decision, you're riding on your wave and you're sampling that decision from many points of your emotional wave, right? You sample the decision over and over and over, and the bigger the decision is, the longer it takes for you to get to a place of emotional clarity where you are clear. This is another way of drawing it. I'm trying these two different ways because I have an open solar plexus. So for me, it was one of the tasks early on, was to really understand what it means to have a defined solar plexus and how to describe an emotional authority to clients in readings. So this is another way I like to draw it. It's like, yeah, you feel something at any place, point in your wave, but there isn't clarity there. You're not clear, you're not clear, you're not clear, and over and over and over, and voila, at one point you are clear. Well, how do you know you're clear? Well, the nervousness goes away as opposed to clarity. Something sits, you relax in your body, and you just feel clearly. You clearly feel whether you should do something or not, or you feel it clear enough. Okay, the clarity doesn't have to be 100%. And whatever the design is, it can be a design of a generator, projector, and manifestor, obviously, right? Whatever the design is, if you have a definition in the solar plexus, you have this emotional inner authority, the solar plexus inner authority. So again, the task for you is to actually recognize, well, how do you know? How do I know that I'm clear? You know, projector is clear about accepting the invitation. Generator is clear in this case about the response. Okay, manifester is clear about informing, going ahead, and initiating. And yet, you know, uh, anybody that has this authority is waiting for clarity, and everybody can experience it in their own way. You know, maybe slightly differently. What is this clarity? What is this feeling in you? Really, that's the key. I mean, this is what human design is about. Like, to take it down to earth, like, are you recognizing your authority? Do you know how it speaks to you? Can you recognize it? So yeah, so I'd like to invite again somebody on the camera, somebody who has an emotional inner authority. And I'll
We
just,
already have a queue, Jakub.
yeah, you have a cue. Okay, Julia, great.
Yeah. So Rhonda was the first one who wrote, and then Luca.
Okay, so if some, just call
And
them
then
on.
we have Inge for emotional manifesting.
Yeah, well, let's call the first one if you can, so that they come on the video.
So Rhonda, can you show up?
Hi.
Hi, Rhonda. Nice to meet
Hi.
you.
Yes,
Okay.
you too. This is the second time I took a class with you years back when I went on a first date with my partner. And then
Okay, really.
we went away and came back together, and so now we kind of think of you as this time when we were dating, when I invited him to an HD class.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
So can you give me your birth
Yes,
data?
it's January 10th, 1966.
Okay, at what time?
It's 3:35, 15:35
AM?
p.m.
Oh, 15.
Mhm.
Okay, 15:35.
Mhm.
And where was that?
It's in Lewiston, New York. Lewis, Lewsiston.
Okay, hold on. Hold on.
Yes.
Okay. New York. Here it is.
Mhm.
L-O.
It's Lewis.
L-E-W-I. Okay.
Ston.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah, here we have
Yeah.
it. Okay. So January 10th, 1966, 3:35
Uh-huh.
p.m. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, good. Okay, so this is not an easy one to live, because you are a manifesting generator,
Uh-huh.
and you can see that the root, which is this adrenalized pressure, spleen, which is so much about the now, and the sacral are all connected through the channel of charisma,
Mhm.
design where thoughts must become deeds, through the gate of now,
Mhm.
right now, into the throat. And then you've got this other island of definition, which is actually cut off from the throat,
Uh-huh.
and which actually is priority number one. But the other island of definition likes to be number one, even though it's actually number two, right? So, um, having patience is probably not something that comes easy to you, right?
All right.
And my question is, how do you recognize the emotional clarity when you're clear? How do you recognize it?
Oh my goodness. It takes patience and time. And
Sure, it does.
yeah, because it's just by looking at this, you can see I call it my tribal leader, who's off on his little mountain or hill or island, and he's the one that he or she, whatever it is, it has a say, in the end, and
Uh-huh.
so it's been a process, because if you also see, my emotions are unconscious,
Yes.
so it's really
It's not easy
I
to get in
remember.
touch with them. And unless
Yes.
you are really patient with yourself, you actually don't get in touch with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And since I've come to human design and learned about the waiting, and by that time my body was already getting tired of living the other way anyway, that it was like a very welcome retreat into not having to do all the stuff I was doing before. And I mean, you know, I don't have the 57 or the 10. I can really go off the rails. And then by the time my emotional system became into enough awareness, it was oftentimes too late. There was already
Okay.
some kind of resistance.
So,
Uh,
but let me just come in, Rhonda. When the clarity actually happens, how do you
uh-huh.
recognize it?
For me,
Yeah.
it's a matter of fact. It's sort of like, oh, are you going to do that? Yeah, like there's no, because I went through enough experiences of not making a decision when you're really
Mm-hmm.
excited, and I can really be excited and so happy. The world is glorious, everything is peaches and cream, and it's like you're blind in technicolor. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everything is rainbows and you could say yes to everything, right? And then you have all
Mm-hmm.
this energy. Oh my goodness, right?
And then, of course, you've got the gate of ambition again and the gate of new beginning. So, you know, ambitious to start something new straight away, right now, right now, right now, all the time. But, you know, that can get you really exhausted and frustrated, right? So
Oh, yes. And angry.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I've
yeah.
experienced the anger because when it's enough times
Yeah.
in my life to go through these experiences and to be able to have the time to reflect as an
Mhm.
emotional person, and just knowing some about my circuitry about going through these and reflecting them and seeing what is really going to be something
Mhm.
for me or not is something that takes time.
So
So
when it
when I
happens,
am,
when you get the clarity, where in your
uh-huh,
body and how do you experience it? How does it come about? Can you
through a
recall a
calm.
moment in a past when that happened, or maybe it's something you really for you're familiar, you don't need to recall a particular moment, but how does that happen?
Well, I had a big decision to move from Las Vegas after 20 years to be with my partner in Canada.
Okay.
So I watched that very, you know, I'm always watching anyway in this process. I've been in it for a while. And my mind was, you know, the mind is still there for me. The mind is still could be very chatty, especially about that big of a decision, right?
Of
I mean,
course,
to
of
move a
course.
country, change citizenship. I mean, this really brought my HD experiment or process to a whole nother level. And I would watch it, but at the same time, I saw my body packing. I watched my body do the emails and uh, put everything together to make this happen. And then there was the waiting periods, right? But it was still this inner calmness of this is happening. The mind is not going to understand it, and it was just pulling me along. It was
Mm,
quite an
mm,
experience. By the time I got here, I just realized this mind does not know this life
mhm.
whatsoever. You know,
So when you say there was this inner calmness, it's in the
uh-huh,
contrast to other times when the calmness is not there. There is certain nervousness about the experience, the decision, or there is
uh-huh.
too much excitement, or
Yeah, because you can still be excited about a decision, right?
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
sure.
I was excited to be with him, but it's like a different dimension of how I'm inner experiencing as opposed to, oh, you don't know, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
know. There's a different
Yeah.
level or different dimension of nervousness because you're like, you know, and my body will be like this. It will move away from something, and so me finding things to occupy my time in movement or whatever, it takes it all my mind off of that, right? So I
Okay.
can focus on something else while it's still processing.
So when basically, you know, when you are clear, there is a certain calmness there, as you're saying.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Uh, just because you're excited, it doesn't mean that either you're clear or not clear. Excitement can be there either
Uh-huh.
way, right? You
Yes.
know, in my little illustration, you know, I say, well, you get to a point where you're emotionally clear. It doesn't mean that there are no emotions. You can still be quite emotional, you know, on the upside of the wave or on the bottom side, whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it's like it's loud. It can be loud, but it's like in tune. If
Uh-huh.
you like, if you play a guitar string in tune, or it can be loud but it's out of tune, or it can be subtle
Uh-huh.
and silent and it can be in tune or out of tune. Again, you know,
Uh-huh.
excitement, no excitement, that doesn't really matter. Although when people are extremely excited, typically it's a sign the clarity isn't there yet if they're extremely
Uh-huh.
excited. Okay, but really, there is no generalization except for you tricking this feeling within you, where there is something just kind of relaxes into this calmness, inner
Uh-huh.
calmness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, can you say where in the body that happens or not? Maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't matter. Just maybe you can, maybe you can't. And if and in any case, how would you call it? Is there a word that you would give it to?
It's where I feel it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
from my chest down
Mm-hmm.
and to down into my gut, you know, because
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced the nervousness. I call it feeling, you know, the stove is full, and it could
Mm-hmm.
be more than one decision percolating on each of the burners, right?
Right, right,
And it
sure.
even can get, yeah, it can get to the point where I can't even take any more info in because there's so much that's happening in this amazing system, you know. It's so, well, all those chemicals, right? I mean, there's so much going on in this mystery of the solar plexus. So when that happens, I feel, I say it's full. The stove is full, things are cooking. I don't really need anything right now. But then as the things lift, it's like you can, with something's already cooked, the decision's clear, the pot's ready to come off the stove, so to speak.
So that's when
And
that feeling of relaxation from the chest to your gut happens?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
How would
so
you call
matter of
it?
fact. Oh,
How,
dinner's ready. Okay, you know, we might be excited about what we're eating. We might not be, but it's okay. It's ready
uh-huh,
there.
uh-huh.
You know,
And how would you, if you were to give it a name, how would you call it? The
I don't
sensation.
know. it's uh, it's just like a calmness.
Uh-huh.
Just a knowing. You know,
Okay. Calm knowing. Yeah, maybe.
yeah, it's just for me, it's a calm knowing, which is part of my
Cool.
cognition anyway. I mean,
Cool.
nothing happens for me unless I'm in calm,
All right.
you
Well,
know?
thanks. This is what I'm getting at, is like for you to recognize what happens in your body when the clarity arrives.
Uh-huh.
Learn to recognize it in different situations and kind of
Uh-huh.
check it against different situations to actually see, yes, this indeed means that I am emotionally clear, and giving
Mm-hmm.
it a name that can change, next month or next year, just to kind of be able to track it and train your attention, awareness to track, to filter for this, right? This, so
Thank
this
you.
is
I
this is
love
the
that.
point.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that little strategy. And
yeah,
I feel I'll just call it like the calm comfort or
cool,
calm, you know, teddy bear. I don't know.
wonderful,
It's like, you
wonderful.
know, this warrior has had to really learn how to bow to the Buddha, who I really feel is a solar plexus.
And it's a big dilemma of your design. On one hand, to be so independent that and that individual, this 3420, I'll do
Mm-hmm.
my thing, and if you only have this channel, it's like I really don't care about anybody else. And on the other hand, this channel of community, which is like, I really need to find my place within the larger uh, something larger than me, right? Where I belong, where I work with other people, and that's a big dilemma that you cannot resolve through the mind, but the
Mm-hmm.
authority will
Yeah,
help
yeah,
you
yeah.
to resolve. So let's leave
Yeah.
it here, Rhonda. Yeah, thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks. Great. Okay, and I guess we can have some questions. Julia, I don't know how you wanna do that. You can turn off.
There
Yeah.
are many, many
So you
questions.
can just select some.
Um, Let me see. Aha, there it is. If there is a room full of people, who's in charge of decision making, of correct decisions?
Oh, that's your, the center of your authority, basically. That's what I'm saying. Be it sacral, be it solar plexus, whatever the authority is. That's what makes decisions. So that was a metaphor. Centers being people.
I'm confused about how sacral authority initiates with someone if they want to go for a walk or play a game. I heard yesterday they must not initiate and only respond. I'm a projector and understand I need to wait for invitation. But my husband is a sacral generator, so I feel stuck around understanding how we decide to do things
Yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah. So this goes to kind of trying to do everything by the book, like a good girl and boy. I'm told I cannot initiate, therefore I may not do anything until my husband invites me. I cannot even have a dinner. That's I get it. You wanna understand it. I'm not making fun of you, for asking that, but I'm just kind of saying we need to get over this kind of a initial dogmatic approach of, oh, it has to be like this, because actually the whole point of human design is that we have our own authority. And it's actually very interesting how we as people are anxious to give our authority away to other people. And we can just as easily do that to human design. We can give our authority away to human design. So like I'm a generator. I can only respond. I must not do anything that's a response. Well, first of all, um, do you really know what response is? Can you really feel it in your body? You've heard probably many times, and I'm sure everybody knows that if you're a sacred generator, you can make sounds. Okay, but the authority is not sacred sound authority. It's the sacral authority. Sure, it helps you to make sacred sounds. Are you hungry right now, Jakub? Are you cold? Are you enjoying this? So it's like sounds are cool. That's like additional support, additional help if you want to help. Like when I'm in a restaurant with my girlfriend and I'm not really sure what to choose, I give her the three things on the menu that I like, and I ask her to ask me, and then I respond with a sound. Cool. But actually, regardless of the sound, ultimately, and at any point, you have access to the actual experience of your life force rising up, which is the actual response, right? So that's one thing. If you are in a relationship and you're a projector, you're invited by the fact of being in a relationship to do all kinds of things, right? If that would be a complete stranger, you shouldn't probably come up to them and ask them to go for a walk. But if it's your husband and however you feel like going for a walk, well, you can do that. You can ask them, hey, do you want to go for a walk with me? I feel like going for a walk. The same for your husband. If when I feel like going for a walk, it's in my body. Like I start being a little nervous, I start being a little edgy sitting behind the desk too long, and I get up and ideally I go out for a walk. I'm learning to actually do that more and more. But that just happens in and of itself. And when that happens, I can ask my girlfriend, hey, would you like to go for a walk? Right? Or she may feel like going for a walk, and I don't really feel, like I didn't, it wasn't my impulse. But when she says, well, I want to go out now, and I go like, okay, let's go. There is no initiating in that. It's just you're involved, you're connected, you're together. So if you want to go for a walk, just ask. Yeah, Julia.
Okay, so do you want also to work with the emotional manifester because there's been quite an interest, or you want to continue to other authorities?
I think this is it for the demos. I think the point has been made. It doesn't matter if it's an emotional manifester or if it's an emotional generator or an emotional projector. In any case, first, yeah, if it's an emotional generator, obviously the response is also is taken into consideration, and the clarity ultimately is about the whole situation, and also about the response. It's saying yes to something. If it's an emotional manifester, then depending on the design, but in any case, the manifester is here to go ahead and initiate. Now, I'm avoiding I'm trying not to rub manifestors' nose into waiting, because they're really not designed to wait. But what I tell to emotional manifestor, and I don't think I have an emotional manifestor chart here. I have one that I used before, actually. Let me just share this. Somebody came on and was an emotional manifestor, Charmaine's chart. So, when there is an emotional manifestor here, the point is, you know, ideally give yourself time to feel through whatever it is you're feeling, to have some level of clarity, because then if you are at least somewhat clear, you will go ahead and initiate clarity and have the right kind of impact and therefore be at peace. If you're not really clear, you're going to initiate and impact other people with the chaos within you, and you will not have the right kind of impact, and you will be angry. But regardless of the type, the whole point of this talk is, how do you actually recognize the clarity being there? And again, discern the clarity from this immediate urge to express your feelings and moods in action, right? That's one thing, you know, the surge of energy that jump starts the manifestor and takes them into action, you know. Kind of similar to the response. Of course, it's a whole different deal, but you know, these two are energy types, generator and manifestor. So in manifestor, again, there is energy present. The energy is present here. In this case, it's the solar plexus connected to the throat. The surge of energy takes you into action, but ideally, do you recognize the clarity at the same time as this intense search for action, right? So yes, it is quite a challenge for a manifestor with an emotional authority to give themselves some time to allow their feelings to become clear. And you definitely don't have to do that, right? But you can, and if you give yourself the time, it's going to pay off big time, because you will be initiating from the place of emotional clarity, right? So, but you know, the point being, okay, how do you recognize it? Where in your body? And I'm gonna just put the presentation back again. Where in your body do you experience that clarity? How do you recognize it? What is the sensation? What is this? You know, as I like to call it, this felt sense. I'm not sure if I have it here somewhere. Yes, here it is. What is this felt sense, you know, that you can always go back to? And it's the authority that will navigate you through any difficulties, any challenges in your life, and take you out of there. So yeah, we have time for maybe one or two more questions, Julia.
Well, we have a lot of questions about reflectors and how do you put the decision-making process in normal language for a reflector?
That's reflector is an exception to every rule. It's a chapter in and of itself, but ultimately they also, you know, in one way or another, recognize that they should do something or not, right? It's about big decisions in life. It's not about what am I going to have for lunch today. It's about those big decisions that get reflectors into the right place so that they can be really reflecting an environment that's healthy for them, and just really meet the people that surprise them because they are waking up, you know, they can uplift them, whatever that is. In one way or another, they have their own internal way of recognizing when the decision's being made. And again, it's about really entering into a dialogue with the reflector, going through some examples, and finding where they recognized and came to a conclusion about the decision, and where it, you know, it wasn't from the mind, but it was from their personal authority, you know, their lunar personal authority, you know, it's and how they experienced it in the body the moment the decision arrived, how it felt into place, this last piece of puzzle, basically. So that's what I can say about it, just briefly. Anything else there, Julia?
There were like 5 questions about reflectors, so yeah, that looks like it's the main point today.
Okay.
And okay, there is one more. I understand from yesterday the difference between sacral generator and emotional generator is the sound from the sacral generator is the first sound response to trust, and the emotional generator is a feeling in the body upon taking time. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, we can look at an emotional generator because it also has a sacral center defined. Basically, the sacral response can be there pretty much straight away, but the authority is emotional. So the person ideally learns to recognize when the clarity is there and then act on the clarity. Now, in many cases, the clarity is going to be there immediately when it's like you're on the street and a bus is driving at you. and you're on the crosswalk, you don't need to wait for clarity to recognize you need to jump away. The clarity is there immediately, you know. In your everyday life, you don't need to wait for clarity because you will not experience this nervousness about not having clarity. You know, your spleen, you know, if you have it, you know, is going to kick in anyways and be, you know, keeping you alive. Your sacral is going to navigate you through everyday life. But there will come a situation, you know, quite often actually, where you'll learn to recognize, the clarity isn't there. I'm nervous about it. You know, when it comes to sacral sounds, yes, you know, even emotional generator can make sacral sounds, but it's just the truth in the now, and ideally they wait for the emotional clarity. So I would leave it with that. Yeah.
Great. And Cindy's asking, can you please talk about self-projected authority?
This is not my point to go through all the authorities and describe how it works. It's about, you know, listening to what you say in the now, not to what you think in the now. But let's leave it here because I have another topic I want to go into. And so thanks for paying attention to this. Hopefully, you know, my desire was to kind of encourage you to explore how the authority actually talks to you. How do you recognize it in yourself, in the body, and track it and play with it. Okay. And now let's go to this other part of my presentation today, and this is called the not self is not the enemy, right? And so this is something that I'm actually somewhat passionate about. And what I want to talk about is that if you meet human design, many times, especially if you're a newcomer, if you come into human design, it's very easy to find one of the first things that you find about your chart is the description of how the not self takes over. What happens if you have an open solar plexus? What happens if you have an open G center? What happens if you, whatever, you know, whatever the openness is, whatever the not self tendencies are, you know, it's very easy to hear. And it's, you know, very often we hear, one of the first things we hear about our design when we come into human design is the description of its not self. It's understandable because, you know, on one hand, it's relatively easy to identify with. We all know that, you know, this conditioning is there. It's easy to identify with. You know, we experience it. Therefore, if we know a little about human design, it's pretty much something that's safe to say to our friend when they look in their design and they say, "See, you know, you have an open solar plexus. You're afraid of confrontations." You know, it's a safe and easy thing to say. You know, but it's I think we put too much attention on the not self, right? And I've you know, some things to say about it. You know, when we look at the openness, well, let's start with the definition. You know, and by the way, on the left and right, you can see the same chart. You know, on the left, the definition is kind of lifted up. On the right, the openness is lifted up. Everything that's open. You know, we know that the definition represents our gifts and talents. It's the potential that we were born with, that we came here to live out. And the openness is where we meet the world, where we go to school, where we experience relationships, conflicts, all the drama of life, you know, where we encounter everything that's outside of us. Openness is relational. Okay. Many times I've heard people speak about open center and say the word empty centers, right? Uh, it happens so often and so automatically. And why does it happen? Because whenever we see something white, we think, well, I'm missing something over here. It's empty because I'm missing something. Something is wrong with me. I'm missing something, right? Yes, it's true that the openness is where the conditioning tends to really take root, but not exclusively. You know, you can be just as conditioned in a defined center, right? You know, when we talk about an open ego center, for example, right, that may have a tendency to feel somewhat not worthy and try to prove their worth. Okay, yeah, it's a thing for an ego center, but it's not exclusive to the open ego. You know, you can have somebody with a defined ego center, and of course they will at certain points in their life also feel not good enough and also feel they need to prove their worth to other people. Okay, it's a conditioning that's there for the ego center period. It's not exclusive to the open center. Okay, yes, it's true that the openness is typically where we are more conditioned. You can see the openness in a design as a, it's like certain like holes in the ground, and if you spill water on the ground, you know, the water is going to fill up the holes. You know, the open centers are going to be filled with these tendencies from outside that we take on as children. You know, that's what we call conditioning, actually, right? That we take in certain tendencies as children, but it can be just as well in the definition. But also the point is, yes, it happens. It happens, you know, probably to everybody. Maybe there are some people who never got conditioned. I don't know. I don't know anybody like that. Just like I don't know anybody who's completely deconditioned, right? I mean, we always try, but you know, I don't think we ever get there. Maybe, you know, who knows? But you know, there are always challenges in life, and there are always moments where we get caught off guard, you know, be it by parents or partners, you know, and whatever. And but you know, the conditioning is there, but the conditioning is not the point of human design. It's good to know about it, but it really doesn't serve us to demonize it and to create such an enemy out of the not self. Because when we look at the you know, the not self, and we think, well, this is something we need to eradicate, this is something where we need to improve ourselves, you know, we're still caught within this mentality of I want to improve myself, something's wrong with me and I need to be better. And that's kind of it's like kind of a addict mentality. It's kind of a victim mode, right? Whereas we really have the potential to look at the definition and the whole of design and see the potential in the design and see that as something that's really worthy going towards and actualize, right? So and just to go through this slide where I say a little bit about conditioning. Conditioned behavior is a behavior that's based on unconscious behavioral patterns and programs. You know, these patterns develop mostly in early childhood, but you know, can be at any point in life. You know, traumatic events happen at any point. You know, especially, you know, they develop during the childbirth and even before. These are coping mechanisms imprinted by our surroundings, like parents, teachers, older siblings, you know. By the way, not all conditioning is wrong or bad. You know, if you're conditioned to brush your teeth before going to bed as a child, you know, that's a pretty healthy conditioning, right? You know, it's like everything's conditioning, you know. Well, not everything's conditioning, but you know, like there's all kinds of conditioning, and not all of it is bad, right? It's like you know, we don't need to feel that just because, you know, we're influenced by other people that it's wrong. No, we're here to interact with them. Traumatic experiences obviously can result in conditioning. You know, we usually don't remember childhood traumas, you know, or they wouldn't seem as traumatic from our standpoint today, but they were. You know, conditioning operates on these deepest levels of our psyche, you know, limbic and even reptilian brain. It's impossible to stop conditioned behavior willingly. You know, it's like you just decide not to ever do that, right? You know, it's like if somebody gave you a reading and told you all your conditioning and you can decide from now on, I'll never ever do it again. Great, then what are we doing here, right? I mean, it would all be great, but it doesn't work like that because it's not about our conscious control, okay? But what happens is that when you learn to function from the definition, from the place of truth, in this case, it's a splenic authority in a manifestor chart, slowly but surely, you're learning to make healthy decisions about that which enters into you through your openness. You know, I say healthy because spleen is very much related to health. You know, splenic center is about health, and it's you know, it's well-being and so on. And so the whole point of human design is to get in touch through the strategy. Well, let me just put the different, you know, through the strategy, we get in touch with our authority. You know, if as a generator, if I don't wait to respond, I will not give my sacral center even a chance to respond. If I just initiate, I won't even have a chance to respond. So the strategy gets me in touch with my authority. You know, if I wait, I have a chance to respond. And the authority actually allows me to make healthy and correct decisions. Let me just put my chart there since I'm talking about myself. Healthy and correct decisions about that which enters into me through my openness. And slowly but surely, I am deconditioning in these areas. Okay. But when we demonize the not self, when we put too much attention on the not self, we're really, I feel we're missing the point, right? And it's very easy to see it, for example, when we go just on the level of centers. Centers are relatively easy to get. You've all heard about centers. What are the keynotes for the centers? This is just one of the main keynotes that I put together in this slide. And then of course we've got these not self jingles, right? Open head, answering all the questions, thinking about things that don't matter. Open G, you're sucker for love, always looking for someone to love you, for who you are and where you should go. And open solar plexus, you're always avoiding confrontations, uncomfortable truth. Open ego, here, always proving yourself, making promises you can't keep, right? These jingles, okay? But is it really helpful to focus too much on this? Is it real helpful for it to be the first thing the person hears about their design when the true self is so much different? When you can see that through the open ego, you can see what's truly valuable on the material plane. Your open ego allows you to really look out into the world. These open centers are like windows. Whatever center is open in your design, these open centers, let me just put, for example, this one. These open centers are like windows, and you're looking out through these centers into the world around you, and you're taking in all kinds of data. And as I said before, all of that is ideally being passed on into your center of authority, whatever that is. Or if you're a reflector, there is this potential of your type that, by waiting 28 days about major decision, you arrive at some decision about all of that which enters into you through your openness. So with an open ego, it's like this person can really see what is truly actually valuable for them on the material plane, right? If they give themselves a chance, if they wait to respond, if they don't initiate, they will, through their response, make decisions about things, not just because not just because it's going to help them to go into their own direction. For example, the channel of the beat is here, but it's going to help them to go into their own direction in a way that's really valuable for them. This is kind of a precondition for the sacral yes, that it's going to be valuable for them. They will be connecting, response is connection. They will be connecting with something that is truly valuable for them, and in response, they will connect with that which is valuable. They will work and build and generate the life which is filled with value for them, and it's going to be reflected all around them. And therefore the question of, well, what's my value and should I prove my value to other people is not going to be relevant at all. That's the deconditioning process in the ego center. It takes time, obviously, but you're shifting from I want to prove my worth, I need to prove my value to myself and to others. You're shifting slowly but surely towards, if I'm going to connect with something, I guess you'd better prove to me whether it's actually worth my time, right? I have certain ambitions over here. I mean, this kind of is a recurrent theme today for some reason, ambitions to start something new. I've got certain ambitions to start something new, okay? But it doesn't mean I'm just going to say yes to something because you're asking me to or you're wanting me to. Is it really worth my time? You'd better tell me more. The first line is going to investigate. Through their response, if the response says yes, that basically means, yes, I can connect with it because it will be valuable for me. Okay. And that's how the deconditioning happens in these centers, that slowly but surely over time, you're shifting from, holding on to things or relationships that are no longer healthy for you into, well, being aware of what is actually healthy for you, potentially even for others. If it's not healthy, well, why would you hold on to that? For example, in the sacral, we know that, projectors, reflectors, manifestors have an open sacral. The jingle is not knowing when enough is enough, right? Sure, of course. Okay, but what is the true meaning of an open sacral? Well, it can uplift reflector, it can impact manifestor, and it can guide projector, the life force, because you're taking the life force in. You're taking it in, you're looking at it, okay? And so, you know, the point I'm trying to make here is that if we put too much attention on the not self, and if we see the openness primarily as a source of a problem in a chart, you know, we're actually putting attention on the problem instead of on the solution. Okay, the openness in a chart, the openness is not the problem. The openness is not where the problem is. I mean, if it's open, you know, especially this completely open head, for example, it's got no structure. It's open. There is nothing in there. I mean, permanently, you know, there is nothing permanent there. How could we have a problem where there is nothing permanent? Okay, obviously the openness is not the problem. And if we keep beating the not self to the death and try to be better and be good girls and boys and, you know, make sure that we absolutely always respond and, you know, never make a promise, you know, God forbid, you know, all of that, uh, you know, it's kind of a lower frequency way of looking at the design instead of looking at what is actually there, that this person has a potential to wait and in response can focus their energy to go into the direction that will empower them and help them structure things, bring more efficiency, and, you know, maybe even a shocking way, uh, empower other people, okay, and be satisfied as the result. And if you describe the empowered you know, if you put this empowered description of a design, you know, as something that we call superhero profile, you know, in Human Design America, we call this kind of an empowered description of someone's design. We call it the superhero profile. If you speak about the superhero profile, sure, you know, there is a place in the reading after death to, you know, bring up the conditioning as well, but not, you know, not like, you know, look, this is how you're screwed, you know, you'll be forever screwed. But, you know, if you put the attention on the positive, if you put the attention on the highest possible expression of the design, that's really the motivation that works. That's really what gets people going, because you're connecting them with their hero's journey, instead of telling them, hey, you're always making promises, and by the way, you know, you can be in a confrontation, you know, and things like that. You know, it's kind of a lower frequency the way I see it. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it today is because it's just so prevalent. It's like, you know, we put so much attention on the not self, thinking that if you explain to someone in great detail what the fuck is the problem with them, that they're going to magically change and transform, right? But if that would be the case, we all would be transformed. I don't think that's the case, you know. So here's a quote from Genoa, which I like. The problem is not openness. When we understand the priorities within our definition, we can use the authority to take effective action, right? So, you know, the openness in our design really isn't the problem. The problem is that we don't understand the priorities within our definition, that actually taking time to wait, or informing before initiating, or, you know, waiting 28 days for a reflector, or waiting to be invited, you know, that's the priority. When you do that, automatically these you know, tendencies in the openness begin to transform from the not self to the true self. And yes, of course, it's important to mention, you know, otherwise people will not even sometimes believe you're actually talking about them if you just talk about the true self. Of course, it's important to mention that, but it definitely doesn't need to have such an emphasis, okay? I have a chart here with few things, and then I'll open it up for questions. I have like a slide with couple bullet points here. The problem-based approach, as I like to call it, you know, we focus on the problem, you know, which is the not self. We take the authority away from the person. You know, somebody comes to us and we pretend we know everything about them, right? You know, it's we know everything about you. I can see your design. I know who you are. We take the authority away from them because we tell them, you must not do this. You have to do that. Well, that's a little bit, uh, there is a bit of a disconnect in there because, when we have our authority on one hand, which is what human design says, well, on the other hand, why would you tell me that I must not do something and have to do something else? Nobody has to do anything. We can. Okay. So, we focus on the problem. We speak about the not self. We're taking the authority away. We're reinforcing the idea that there is something wrong with you, with me, putting too much attention. Listen, I'm not saying we shouldn't mention not self. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying don't put too much attention on it because, it just reinforces the idea something's wrong with them, with the person, with me. It gets us into this victim addiction mode. It's really a lower frequency way of looking at the chart instead of seeing the true beauty and potential in the chart. If you're trapped in the reality of a problem where you see yourself as someone that has a problem, you give away the authority to the person that does your reading or whatever, and you've got certain steps that you feel like you have to follow in order to improve, going away from the conditioning, wanting to be better, you can't escape the reality of the problem. You're still operating within the reality of what you perceive as the problem. And that, in my opinion, is unimaginative and boring. Okay, it may produce some results, but it's not nearly as exciting as the proactive approach. Where in the proactive approach, we focus on the gifts and talents. We give the authority back to the client, to the person, not pretending we know everything about them just because we see their chart, but inviting them into a dialogue, inviting them into the investigation, and recognizing instead of that, we know how it is for you and you'd better do this or that, we say, well, it's an eternal mystery, please come back and let me know what's going on for you, when you've got some experience with it. Looking at the highest potential expression of the design is absolutely empowering. Okay, I'm not saying to to have pink eyeglasses, and just see everything as great, definitely not. But really recognize, this essential shift in attitude from the problem-based to proactive approach, where instead of being a victim of conditioning, the world is out to get me, we are sitting on our own hero's journey. It's an experiment. Ross said it many, many times. It's an experiment with this. Don't believe anything I say. Let's explore it, and coming in this place where, quantum shift is possible and takes place because you're not putting attention on the problem, but you're putting attention on that which actually works, which is your authority. Ultimately, strategy and authority is that which works, that translates, right, the raw inherent gifts we are born with into full-blown talents. It's the function of authority for us to to fulfill our potential. This way it supports and encourages the transformation so that we can live out our incarnation cross. And it's inherently creative. It's how we can play with life, right? So to going back to this slide, yeah, this person has an open ego. They have dormant potential here on gate 51, which just so happens to be their personality sun. So it's a big temptation for them to prove by wanting to be first or best at something, by shocking other people and right? But if you wait to respond, you will go in your own direction and you will be able to withstand shock or even shock other people with your courage. You will be able to push the envelope and step over your own shadow continuously and have the willpower available to it as long as you are operating from the response. Okay, it's a different way than if you start, hey, looking at your design, I can see you're trying to prove yourself all the time, and by the way, you do it by wanting to be the first or best. It's such a different attitude. Of course, uh, this applies to all the open centers, all the dormant potentials. So I wanted to bring this up. Hopefully, I'm making my point clear. I never actually talked about it in this way. This is the first time, but I'm open for any questions at this point. So, Julia, if there are some questions, you can just read them or however you want to do it, and I'll be happy to answer them. You're muted, Julia. You are on mute, Julia.
I was talking to myself. Yeah, I say so far I don't see that many questions. I see more of appreciation and just thanking you and how great this offering is. And it's just, oh, David wants to ask live. Can he ask live?
Sure, David, come in.
Sorry, whoops, where am I here? I jumped in before I had. Are you guys? I have a little background noise. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. My question is, what you're saying really resonates with me. I'm in my analyst training right now, and I'm going into my second year. And something that occurred to me recently was essentially everything you're saying about reinforcing the positive aspects of the wisdom that's available through the openness to the person that you're reading for. And I was curious if you could just speak about what is your process in a reading. How do you incorporate it? Do you lead with that and then touch the not self themes later? Or because for me it seems like everything you're saying is just resonating with me so much, and I love the idea of empowering the people to the thing they can strive for and the thing they're capable of. And I was just wondering how you integrate that in your readings. Does that make sense?
Okay, sure, makes sense. I am teaching professional training, and I'm following the structure laid down by General Bliven. What we do is, first of all, we describe the definition in the first part of the reading. And that's what we do in semester one. We learn how to actually map the definition and describe the channels and then synthesize them and speak about the sacral response in a chart specific way, so that it's not just like, well, you have the channel of power, design of the archetype, and you have the channel of maturation, design of balanced development, but we speak about it in terms when you respond to start something new that you have the power to take all the way to the end. So we describe the definition in a very chart specific way. Then we go to the openness. This is the second semester and also second part of the reading. In the openness, we talk about obviously, what we do is we first talk about the positive potential of the openness. So that's my point here. We begin describing the openness as something that you're filtering for and you're looking at. Okay, so for example, in your design, we can talk, when we get to the ego center, we can talk about the fact that it's completely open, that you can really be very wise about what it means, about what something is valuable or is of value on the material plane. You can be, eventually very wise about it. Also, given your profile, 6-2 profile, is the wisdom line, the 6th line. But it happens as long as you respond. If you respond, as I described, before, if you respond, one of the reasons your sacral will respond to something is because it's going to be valuable for you. It's correct for you. It's going to have value for you. So we describe it in this proactive way, and then we go into the not self. Then we say, by the way, since it's open, you might have a tendency to feel that sometimes you're lacking a certain amount of willpower, and you might feel that there is something you need to do, like you need to be maybe better or to prove to yourself or to other people, maybe in your particular case by trying to be in control and placing too much emphasis on control. That's actually exactly where you can initiate, because when we talk about response versus initiating in a generator. Well, where do you initiate? Well, you initiate, most obviously, maybe I would say in wanting everything to happen right now, and then potentially probably you have some experience with that as well, with wanting to be in control where you're not meant to be in control, right? So we say, okay, this is there, this is the conditioning that's there. Now when that happens, when you feel that you want to be in control, or something happens right now, you need to, right now I need to be in control. We can, it's all coming together at the same time, right? In a real life, like right now I need to be in charge. Okay, when you experience that, take it as a signpost, because it probably means that you're probably initiating in that moment. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, and then there is a little add-on, which is, by the way, if you can't help it and you actually do something that's not correct for you and you initiate, you will end up feeling that there is something wrong with you. And many times this is so prevalent. Many times people get into situations where they're not meant to be, because they, somebody asked them to, they didn't respond, whatever, didn't wait for an invitation, whatever, they got involved in something. And then they feel like, well, I can't leave it, I have to be there because I said I'm going to be committed, I'm doing this, and I really don't feel like I'm doing it right. And no matter what I do, it just doesn't work. I really need to work harder. I really need to do something better. And actually the solution to the problem is to remove yourself from the situation completely, because it's exactly where you're initiating that you start feeling not good enough with an open solar plexus, or where you start feeling very uncomfortable about confrontation, right, with an open solar plexus. So, but especially the ego center, if you initiate, you will feel that you're not good enough. And typically what people do is they try work harder so that they can prove to themselves and to others and feel like I can do it. But the whole thing is, because they're not meant to be there in the first place. So the solution is not to get better in what you're doing. You don't feel good enough. It's a sign for you to remove yourself from the situation. So the big R here is when you feel not good enough, when you feel frustrated, when whatever the symptom of conditioning the not self is, then remember to go back to your authority. And this is the crucial piece that I'm only now saying. So that when you experience conditioning, whatever it is, and you know how you experience it, it's you live it your whole life, you know how it feels. When you experience the symptoms of conditioning, go back, remember to go back to your authority, in this case response, or could be emotional clarity, or talk about it with your friend if you have a self-projected authority, and listen to what you're saying, whatever it is, right? So we describe the true potential of openness, then we talk about the potential conditioning, and and I have it here in this slide, any problem we have, we bring it to resolution to the authority. Well, I'm not going to show it now, it's just going to confuse everybody. So yeah, so whatever the problem is, whatever the problem is, or the dilemma in the design, the authority is going to resolve that. Does that make sense, David?
Yeah, it really, really does. Do you link it directly with description, I guess, with the mind pulling everything going up to your mind, your thoughts are connected to, and those thoughts are creating the pressure on, like, my open ego. So if I'm doing something and I'm feeling bad about whatever it is, I feel like I need to prove myself. My mind's chatter is always the thing. I can feel it, but then my mind starts to go, you should do that, and you should do this, and you should do that to prove yourself, to make yourself, like,
Yeah, yeah,
do you make
sure.
that connection in the reading?
I guess it's not like a rule. Whatever. Like I go through it center by center, and then I kind of synthesize it all through the not self and the true self, right? So I mean, it all works together. So yes, you experience the things in the mind, but the main point is you don't feel good enough. You feel that there is something wrong with you. But the problem is you shouldn't be with, in that job, or you shouldn't be in that relationship, or you shouldn't be involved in this. That's the problem. Not that there is something wrong with you, but that you're doing something you're not meant to be doing. That is the problem, okay? And so the not self actually, and this is actually the point of this whole talk here, the not self is like a sign, you know, the experience of not self, the experience of conditioning, where you experience whatever it is, you know. I mean, we have these general default keynotes for not self, which is like frustration, anger, disappointment, bitterness, you know, but we can fine tune it through specific, you know, centers or even gates. Whenever you experience it, it's a signpost for you that something's not going well and you need to default back to your authority. So remember to go back to your authority.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. That frustration has really become my best friend in a lot of ways
Sure.
because of that very thing. It's like that little guy is tapping on your head, going like, "Hello, hello,"
Yeah.
you know. But thank you so much. That was really clear. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I've really enjoyed that. And I know we're running out of time, Julia, so I'm just gonna read through this final slide.
I just have to read what Dirk said
Okay.
because it's a beautiful reflection. From my perspective, it's important in a way to take into account that the not-self strategies are actually defense strategies that were laid out in defense. So many feeling that is that we are only able to detach from them with love, not by judgment.
Yes,
Thanks for
exactly.
sharing your perspective. It's uplifting to hear and nice to feel Genoa has a frequency that loves them.
Thank you, Dirk. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. Conditioning was there because it helped us, but we no longer need it. So just to conclude, because we are running out of time, as I know, not all conditioning is bad. The world is not out to get us. Okay, we don't need to feel victim and that everything is going to condition us from, you know, the moment we wake up to the moment we fall asleep, and then, you know, also asleep. You know, we don't need to live out in this paranoia. We are here to be.
Jakub,
Yeah.
I really have to insert this one sentence that
Okay.
to enhance what you are saying, because what struck me was saying that another word for conditioning is life.
Uh-huh. Great. Exactly. This is life. This is great.
And
This is great.
was,
Yeah. It's awesome. So don't get stuck fighting the symptoms. The not self experience is a warning signal that something is not right. Nothing more. This is what I spoke about just right now with David. And so that's really the point, you know, don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. When you experience something, then the big R, remember to go back to your authority. Every dilemma in the design can be resolved by the authority, and authority translates the raw gifts into talents. And if you liked what I was saying, come for more to Human Design America. I'd be very happy to meet you there. We have PTL1 course, LYD, ABC starting. I'm teaching some of them. It's been great. It's been fun. And I don't know if we have chance to go into questions. I don't think we do, but maybe we do. So Julia, it's up to you.
maybe one question we can take.
Yeah,
so
we have about
if
7
someone
minutes
is
for next
fast
event.
enough to do that.
Great. I'll be happy to. Let's go into it.
And Jakub, it's so great to see Edgar, Marika, and other students of yours that I've been studying with. It really feels like family together when we're getting in this new space. And by the third day, it already feels like home.
I wasn't even looking who's here, but it's really great to see a lot of people that I recognize. And so
yeah, just informing you that there are a lot of students of yours.
Yes, thanks. So do we have a question there? Anybody would like to type a question into chat or not?
Mostly everybody's raving and smiling and saying that it's been wonderful, thanking you. And that's pretty much what it is.
Okay,
I think that says it all. I've been listening to everything, Jakub, just doing some behind the scenes work here also. But yeah, it's inspiring to hear you, Jakub.
Thank you, Kristen. It's been fun. Marike, you are there to ask a question? No? Okay. All right. Well, that's it then. You know, it's been a lot of fun. It's been pleasure. I hope you get something out of it. You know, again, the focus is on the authority. That's the whole point. And the other point I was trying to make, don't demonize the not self. It's just a signpost. Okay, so with that, that's really it for me today, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Crystal, for inviting me. And
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jakub.
Okay.